Good morning and welcome to Valiant podcast. I'm your host today, Niall McManus, and today we're very lucky to be joined by Peter Dougherty, CEO of GroIQ. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Niall. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you.
Absolutely, always great to talk to you, Peter. Peter, can you tell everybody what GroIQ does?
So GroIQ is a data as a service offering, and there's two components to it. One is modeling facilities in terms of key performance targets, and the other is monitoring and optimizing in terms of key performance indicators. And the underlying notion there is if you can measure what's going on, then you can start to manage it and improve it. So from a modeling perspective, we model a facility at a systems level in terms of plants per square foot, grams per square foot, cost per gram, and grams per kilowatt hour. So you know what your systems can produce, and you have key performance targets to measure against what you're attempting to build out. And then once it's built out, we can do key performance indicators along the same target sets.
So you can actually tell people how things are going to perform before it's built.
Exactly. The idea is because we're in the cannabis industry and there's so many different types of facilities being built, there's also a number of folks that have experience, but it's more back of the envelope experience than it is systems level analytics. So basically what we're doing is systems level analysis around things like the plants per square foot, which then tells you how much moisture you're going to have, what the HVAC requirements are, the type of HVAC system, the type of lighting, then all the variables that go into what's actually put into a grow room when you're planning that. So we're actually doing it at a systems level analysis and then spitting out key performance targets, so you know.
Nice to know how you're going to perform before you build it, right?
Yeah, it's certainly, given the options, yes, it's a high value asset.
So Peter, if I was building a cultivation today, I'm the owner, and I'm putting a group of people together, architects, engineers. At what point does GroIQ come in? What point should you be engaged?
So we're being engaged in the design phase, and it's mostly by either owners and or the architects who want to understand what the capacity of the systems are going to be, so that as they talk to Valiant or the MEP, they can tell them what systems they want. It's also when they engage with a grower, they can use the grower's incorporate that grower's standard operating procedures, if I can say it, into the planning for the facility. But they want to have a system that isn't necessarily grower dependent. It should be able to operate outside of the SOPs because they may change either based on the grower changing or the market changing. So you don't want to be stuck, but you do want to know what the capacity of those systems are and what you can plan for and operate to.
Very good. So you have your plant count, you have your equipment design around that, you have your water needs. Why don't you talk about a wee bit about fertigation? Obviously, the size of the amount of plants in a room, the size of the pots. Why that's very important to our viewers.
Yeah, so ultimately the measure of success in a grow facility is the ability to deliver VPD. And that calculation is based on relative humidity, room canopy temp, but it's also about, ultimately it's a measure of the transpiration of the plants. And that's all about how much moisture and nutrient and salt you can actually move through the plant. So the gentleman who built this model had built out large building energy analytics systems, so he could do all this in advance. He then incorporated grow variables into that because he's been growing for 30 years. And so a lot of the model is really based around how much moisture these plants are going to transpire, how much moisture you need to be able to pull out of that room to make sure that you're creating a healthy environment. So it's ultimately, we measure VPD, but it's about, can you drive transpiration at the level that you're planning to based on the plant count, how much moisture is going to be running through that room, and then can you actually pull that moisture out so you have cycles going in regards to transpiration.
So that's great. So you can actually tell what
Exactly.
dehumidification needs you need. And then on your energy side of that, you can vet that equipment to make sure the equipment selected by the engineers is going to operate as we mentioned earlier, and at what energy rating that runs at. Because at the end of the day, your equipment is makes you the lowest cost operator where you really want to be. If you can just describe that a wee bit for the viewers as well,
Yeah,
please.
so the idea behind this is ultimately the basis on which cannabis cultivation is going to be judged is how much, what the throughput is from a grams per square foot, and then how sustainable that is in terms of grams per square foot per kilowatt hour. And essentially what we're saying is we can help you model that in advance so that you know what the targets are that you're trying to achieve. And that's what we call capacity IQ. And then GroIQ is actually in the room monitoring, so you know what you're actually getting in terms of throughput. So the idea is if you can model it, then you can monitor it. And that's basically what we're doing.
That's terrific. That's absolutely terrific. So the other scenario, Peter, obviously, is I've already built my facility and
Right,
I'm having problems because of dehumidification, because mold issues. Maybe the plant's not performing correctly.
right.
In these rooms you have horizontal fans and different stuff going on with air, trying to move air through the room and what have you. Is it too late to bring in Grow IQ at that point? Can you help out at that point?
So GroIQ is the other side of the capacity IQ coin. So capacity IQ's modeling, GroIQ's monitoring. And generally what we're brought in is when there's problems or they're just trying to increase their throughput, from say 40 grams a square foot to 90, and trying to optimize that. And so basically what we do is put sensors in at what I call three altitudes in the room: top, middle, bottom of the canopy. Start pulling all that data up into the Amazon cloud and then presenting it back as a data as a service interface, which means any web enabled device can get access to information. And what it provides is an interface that shows you what the room health is of the rooms in terms of what your targets are for if you're measuring VPD or RH, and canopy temp if you're not, as well as ECCO2, least surface temp, and light DLI. All those are the basis of what's the health of your room. Are you staying within the targets and ranges you're trying to achieve or not? And if you're not, what you can do about it. So number one, it lets you see the room in 3D through a room health dashboard based on the data we're pulling out of these sensors. Then it allows you to do diagnostics and remediation if you're having issues in terms of, can you see the hot spots in your room or problem areas if they're PM issues? And then the last piece of it, can you aggregate all those analytics into a cycle report so you can compare cycle to cycle, so you have the notion of continuous learning engine and the ability to continue to improve how you grow what you're growing.
So basically, you give the grower live analytics for what's happening in the room at that
Exactly.
point.
Yep.
Wow,
Yeah, you see the room in 3D.
wow, that's amazing. Because as you know, most rooms they probably have three sensors: a light sensor, humidity sensor, temperature sensor,
Right.
and it's really not recorded anywhere. Where you might get an alarm, but an alarm doesn't tell you what's happening. It'll just
Right.
tell you you're out of range or you're off your setting.
Right.
So
Yep.
you have real live time to help the grower, and that's a big toolbox to have for a
Right.
grower, I'm sure.
So the idea is it not only tells you when you're out of range, but it also tells you that you're going to be approaching a range that's problematic, so you can get alerts before the issues occur. So if your biggest issue is either yield increase or crop loss or both. If you can minimize that by understanding when you're going to run into issues instead of waiting until it's over, then you're in a better state, obviously.
And in your experience, have you seen dramatic changes after GroIQ comes into an existing operation?
Our target market is multi-state operators and large single-site operators, and those operators have gone from our first customer went from 40 grams a square foot to 90. So they more than 100% increase in their throughput.
Yeah, that's a lot of revenue for a business, for sure. I'm sure everyone was happy with you after that one.
Mm-hmm.
If you are an existing building, there's 10 grow rooms. How do you deploy? How do you come into the building? And obviously, as an operation, so it's a delicate thing with flower in the room or without. How do you set up your? How does GroIQ set up in an operation?
Yeah, so basically, what we do is install sensors. You can do a 5,000 square foot room in an hour. We can give them to the customers so they can install them. They're already pre-mapped, or we can do it ourselves based on this COVID world we're living in. It runs off the host network, which means we don't run on the facilities Wi-Fi network. We run on a LoRa network. Basically, it offloads it from the facility network, pushes it up into the Amazon cloud. So it's basically all the customer has to do is give us access to a room when it's clean. We install it, set up, incorporate their information in our interface, and then present the information to them through a data as a service interface. So it's very simple. It's low touch, non-invasive. The sensors are the size of a matchbox. They attach to trellis posts via Velcro, so it's super simple to install. If somebody knocks one off, they're numbered so you can put it back where it was, stuff like that.
And if you do install in a room, what's the timeline that you'd come back with a summary of how that room was performing for relative humidity and all the other information that you mentioned?
You start seeing data right away. So generally what we do is, if it's an initial implementation, we'll do a 2 growth cycle analysis so we can show you a baseline and then make recommendations on how to optimize what's going on in that room in a 2nd growth cycle. So you can see that. Or we install, if with existing customers, we just install facility by facility. But it's based on the time when the rooms are clean. So it's pretty straightforward.
So it's never too late to crack your facility, which is awesome for the customer. Obviously, it's better to get in there before it's built. Now that people know about GroIQ and have seen that you perform, it's great to get you in beforehand. But obviously, if you have an existing facility, it's great to come in and get double the yield. That's a great ad for any company, existing company.
Yep. Thank you, Niall. And I appreciate the summary. You're correct.
Yeah. So, we've worked together on some things, Peter, so we know each other pretty good. So, Peter, thanks very much for joining us. I've been Niall McManus for Valiant Podcast. We look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks, folks.
Appreciate the opportunity, Niall. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Peter. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.